think those hidden moments, those times in your life when you feel really unseen or maybe you don't have much to show for it, that's when God is doing like his best work.
Hey, welcome to the Cozy Corner of Motherhood. I'm Jody and this is Mom Life, and we are here to celebrate the wonderful, messy, beautiful life that is motherhood. And thanks for joining us today. I am so glad to have with me my dear friend, Alyssa Bethke.
Hi, Jody. This is so fun.
And it is so great to have you here. Okay, I want to ask you, just tell us a little bit, first of all, about your family, your kids, your life as a mom, all of that.
Yeah, so we have 4 kids. The fourth one's on the way. We have 3
really?
Yes, 4 kids. 3 kids, 10, 8, and 6. Yeah, gosh, motherhood. What a journey.
What a journey. Well, you do it well, and we're going to unpack all of it. But let me just ask you, too. You are a wife and a mom, and you've got a new one on the way. You're a best-selling author. You are a podcast host. You are a gifted speaker. I just want to ask, you've got this new book, When Doing It All is Undoing You. Did you write that for yourself?
Yeah, I know. I was thinking of that question on the way over here, and I was like, gosh, I feel like when you write a book, it's like you experience and live out something, and then you write it, and then you live it all out again.
Yes.
And so it's just like a constant message. And I feel like when I wrote it, my 3 kids were still pretty little, and I felt like it was a lot of when doing it all is undoing you. Yes, the responsibility, but I feel like it came more out of all the emotional side of feeling like it was my responsibility to make sure that everyone was okay, and how the Lord really journeyed, and a lot of idealism when it comes to motherhood. We homeschooled for a lot of times, so it was a lot of idealism there, and just really learning to like live into our realities. And sometimes realities are really hard, but how the Lord meets us there, and it's so much better than what Pinterest would say, so to speak. And then, I feel like now it's like, there's so much on my plate and responsibilities, and yet it's I feel like it's not so much about what's on our plate or our capacities that we all have, but it's really about the heart and how the Lord meets us each day in those things.
Yeah, he really does meet us, doesn't he? And I want you to lean into that a little bit, because I know as a mom, and you as a mom, and I'm sure really every mom, we like to feel like we have some things are under control, that we've got it together, but like there are going to be some things we can't control. So how do we know like what's up to us and when we just have to throw up our hands and say, God, this has got to be you? What's that distinction?
I think motherhood has shown me how much I like control and how I want to control and how much little control I have. And, I think in Genesis, when God made man, he made us to rule and reign. And so I think the desire to rule and reign is really good, and it's what we're made to do. But the problem is when we try to control without God. And so we try to rule and reign without following him, surrendering to him, doing it the way he wants to do, and we feel like it's all up to us, when really things start to fall apart. And so really I think the key is to how do we rule and reign in our homes as mothers, but doing it partnering with God. Like he wants to do it with us, and it really is a life lived in surrender. I even was thinking about that. This baby I'm 37 weeks pregnant, and I'm like preparing my body for birth.
Thank you for being here. Can I just say, you are my hero.
I had a nightmare the other night. I'm like, what if my water breaks on camera?
Hey, it's Mom Life.
That'll make a show. But as I'm like preparing my body for birth, it really is like I need to get to a place of surrender. Like even in pregnancy and giving birth, it is a surrender of the Lord's story and how it plays out. And so I feel like in motherhood, that really is something that I've learned that I don't know, are we always learning that, of like a constant surrendering our kids to the Lord, and so really partnering with him. And I think, control, I remember years ago, I had ordered these Amazon posters for my my older daughter about emotions, because I'm like, I still need help naming emotions and what they are. And one of the posters said things we can control and things we can't control. And I remember I was like 35, and I put this poster up on my chalkboard, and I was like, wow, I had no idea. Like, no wonder I'm exhausted. I've been trying to control how people respond, my kids' behavior, like all these things, and I have no control over that. And I think when I first was a mom, I thought, no, if I do everything how I should, if I pray the right way, if I teach and disciple the right way, my kids will act the way I want them to act. And I've really realized that you can't control how people respond. You can't control how they think, but you can be like you can have agency of how you respond to them. And so I think it is like we have control of how we're going to respond to the circumstances in our life that we wouldn't have chosen. And so when our kids act out in the grocery store or have a huge meltdown at our house, like I can't control that, but I can take agency of how am I going to be a mom who responds with grace and love, and also stays steady and, patient through it.
And as you said, just doing life with God, partnering with Him. So often we think that's got to be a certain component of our lives as moms, when God is saying, no, can I just enter into it with you? Do it with you. And that invitation, when we take Him up on it, really changes the perspective. Well, let's talk, you alluded to this a little bit, but let's talk about the mess, because you're a mom with 3 little kiddos, another one on the way. I'm an empty nester with what should be a clean and orderly life, but the older I get, the more I'm starting to realize life's kind of messy in every season. And can we be okay with that?
Yeah, I was actually just reading a devotion this morning of how it was, I can't remember, Psalm 100 something, and it was just saying how like in every part of life, it's not that sometimes there's pain and there isn't. Every day has some type of pain. And so, but I think before, if I'd heard that, I would have felt really depressed. Like, oh gosh, I always ran from pain. Instead of realizing, no, each day has God's grace and His love and His presence in the midst of the pain and the reality. And I think, we're talking about mess, and it could be clutter. And I've been saying it, I start to get like hyperventilate, because I'm not a minimalist in any way, but I like an order. But the reality is there's always going to be a mess, and whether it's emotional or actual, like your counters. And so I think realizing that my life is not supposed to look like a Pinterest board. And I think that's what's hard in our day and age with especially young moms. We go online, we see Instagram, we go on Pinterest, and we see all the highlights of everybody, and we just think like that's the standard of motherhood. But like, how do we invite God's presence into our home? How do we be about people's hearts more than things? And it's still good to have order, but like, how do we go about it without stress? And like, okay, this is a joy. I'm thankful I get to pick up my husband's boxers for the 1000th time. I'm thankful I have a family to clean up after. I'm thankful we have dishes to do because we just had a great meal together. And so I think also when you turn it towards thankfulness, it really gives us perspective of the gifts that we've been given.
I love that, using the things that might normally be an annoyance or a frustration to be a trigger for gratitude is a beautiful thing. Love that. Well, what else would you say to the mom, speak to the mom who is, as you say, looking at social media and seeing kind of the perfect orderly life, and she thinks, why can't I get it together, or am I wasting my life? And you and I have talked about this, you can be in the throes of babies and toddlers or even teenagers and thinking, does anybody even see? What am I doing? Is this my purpose? Like, speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, I think that really is sometimes the hardest part about motherhood, in my experience, is when you feel hidden or like you have nothing to show for what you have to do. And I think motherhood can be hard, because I feel like when you are in school or you have a job or you even clean up the house, you can quickly see the fruit of your labor. But when you're discipling your kids, you don't always see the fruit. And so it's really like a long obedience in the right direction, as Eugene Peterson says.
We love our Eugene Peterson.
And so it's this faithfulness, and but realizing, gosh, I think when we live in a culture that is so about performance, it's so about showing what you can do, what you have to show. I mean, social media, it's like, sometimes I'm like, what do I have to show for my day? Like, what do I, going on stories or whatever. But really, when we pull back, God is all about the heart. And I think those hidden moments, those times in your life when you feel really unseen, or maybe you don't have much to show for it, that's when God is doing like His best work. And it's in the secret room of like your prayer life, of your heart, of when nobody sees anything or nobody congratulates you. Who are you? And those are the things where He's really developing your character. And so you have so much beauty to show for it. And I just think of gosh, so many stories of moms whose prayers have been the catalyst for their kids' life and character. Like Eugene Peterson, we love him. His memoir is my favorite book, Burning in My Bones. And the very first chapter is all about his mom. And he says, like, his mom was the most influential person in his life. And when you think of that, like, someone who is such a spiritual, like, I look up to him so much and how he loved the Word of God and, you know, just influenced so many people's lives. But when he attributes it to his mom who prayed faithfully for him, who showed him how to, like, preach the gospel, I think sometimes we don't see that fruit for a long time, but knowing, like, no, God has a purpose for your life, and this is the greatest gift that you can have. And I think it can be hard in our culture when we have so many windows to other people's lives. We want to compare and feel like we have to keep up with them or run with them. But when we really pull back and just ask, Lord, okay, Lord, in this season, what have you given me? What is my responsibility and what is mine to do? And I want to be faithful to do whatever it is. And so if it's the young mom with a newborn and she's just in her pajamas all day for a season, or your kids are teenagers and you have more freedom to go out and do things.
Or not. You might also have less freedom with teenagers. You never know. Anyway,
or grandma is more available. But just what is yours to do and doing it with faithfulness unto the Lord. And I think that is a hard lesson, but it's such a beautiful lesson that the Lord sees in the secret place.
I love that. I love that. And the exhortation to faithfulness and to giving God time to work. You know, I'm older. I can look back and see that fruit of prayers decades sometimes in my kids' lives and in my friends' children's lives. And so, yeah, that's a beautiful encouragement to moms to just hang in there and keep praying, knowing that our prayers really do continue to unfold long after they've left our mouth and our heart. They're still heard by the Lord. He's still working. Beautiful thing.
Good.
Well, Liz, I've heard you say that who we are becoming, and again, that's a slow process, is so much more important than what we achieve.
Yeah.
And is that true for our kids as well? How do you and Jeff kind of hammer that home of who they're becoming?
Yeah, I love that question. I think I still have to preach that truth to myself
Absolutely.
every day because I really want to achieve greatness. Like I want to be significant, and I think that's not a bad thing. But the reality is we're already significant because we are the Lord's and what He says about us. And I think I just have to constantly remind myself, like, no, it's not about my accomplishments and my achievements. It's really about who I'm becoming. And so as I'm learning that, I'm hoping and praying that I'm emulating that to my kids. And I think as you live in that, you have more grace for yourself, and your kids pick up on that. But I think for our kids, you know, when we disciple them, when we discipline them, our greatest heart is not so much what they do, but it's their heart, like praying for softness heart, for repentance, for they may mess up and do something wrong, but do they come back and ask for forgiveness at the end of it? Or even in school, like I of course I would, I love academics. I love school, but I want my kids to just be learners more than A students, you know? And so even as we talk about school or they have assignments, it's like, it's okay if it's not perfect. And my daughter who struggles, but like wants to be in perfectionism, which I struggle with a lot, I'm like, it doesn't have to be perfect. Let's just learn about this. It's exciting to learn about it. And so I think as we, I don't know if I have necessarily like black and white points, but I think hopefully just in my language of how I go about my day with my kids, and, you know, if they break something, no big deal. But let's work together to clean it up. So just those kind of things, it's really more about their character and their heart than making sure that they never mess up or that they say everything the right way, or, you know, because our kids, they're humans. And so I want them to know that their heart is the most important, not what they do.
That is so beautiful. Well, and another thing that I've seen you do really well, I know this is a conversation about family, but you, Alyssa, are really gifted at cultivating friendships and leaning into your people. Is that something you prioritize for your children? How do you teach them to find good friends and to also be good friends?
Yeah, that is such a good question. I was thinking about that a lot because my kids are still younger. I feel like, you know, they're still 10 and under. But I still, moving to a new place, that's been the biggest prayer request, is that my kids will be able to have friends. And I think I'm still really praying for specific things in that area. I feel like we moved here and we had amazing community. Like Franklin is none other. But a lot of our friends, Jeff and I's friends, have teenagers or babies. And so it is still a prayer like, Lord, will you please bring friends for my kids who love you and that they enjoy. But I think, so it's still a big prayer request. And I think I'm learning to be very specific in my prayers and to see when God answers it, to give him so much thanks. But I think, even when our kids go to school, we're always dropping them off and be like, okay, remember to be a good friend today. Look for the person who doesn't have a friend or doesn't have someone to play with at recess or PE, and be the one to invite them in or to encourage them. When you see them do something really amazing, encourage them with that. And it was so sweet because last year, we've always homeschooled, but last year my two older went to a private Christian school. And at the end of the year, they have awards. And those moments, I'm like, you just weep.
Yes.
Where my son, who was 7, he was in first grade, he is really athletic, but his award that he got in PE was he was the one that would always see the person without a partner, and he would partner with them. And so it just makes me weepy when you see, wow, one, I think that's his gifting.
Yeah.
He just is very people oriented. But 2, that he would go out of his way to befriend the person. Or, when you're athletic, sometimes you just want to be with the person who's really good too, so
well,
you win.
I've played pickleball with you.
Yes, and Jody's won every time. So I feel like that was such a sweet thing. And again, going back to becoming an achievement, that's who I want more than the star athlete. So I think I'm really grateful to see how the Lord's answering prayer in those ways.
Oh, that is a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. Thank you. Well, another thing about you that people might not know is that you are the world's best gift giver.
Oh,
so I just thought here at Mom Life, you were just about to give birth, and we want to just have you a little quick baby shower right here at Mom Life. So we are so excited.
Look how pretty the bow is.
You just rip it off. It'll be easy. Yes. Just pull here.
Okay.
Just pull one of these things, and it'll
Okay.
come right off. You know me. I love wrapping.
so
but
sweet.
well, it's just a little thing because it's just so fun to be able to celebrate with you, and we will look forward to being updated on this little one. And
Jody.
we know that
Oh, so cute.
little baby boy coming.
I love it.
Right.
Thank
So it'll be so fun
you.
from Mom Life to
I
you
love
because we love
that.
babies.
Oh, thank you, Jody.
Well, I'm just so glad that you could carve out time, and I'm glad that God allowed you to have this time.
we were praying
to be
that
able to
stay
be with us because it's such a joy to have these conversations. And
Yeah.
I was thinking about you, and just my mind was kind of racing as you were talking, especially when we don't know what to do to get friends for our kids, or we are surrounded by the mess or things we can't control, all of that. And I was reminded as you were talking of King Jehoshaphat, and in 2 Chronicles, I think it's 2 Chronicles 20, he's looking around, he's got 3 different armies attacking him, and he says, God, we don't know what to do, but our eyes are on you.
That's so good.
And so that would be my prayer for you and for all of us as moms, that when we don't know what to do, whether it's about our kids' friendships or the things that feel like they're spiraling out of control in our home or any of that, we can say, God, I don't know what to do, but our eyes are on you. So just thank you so much for being with us today. It's always so much fun to have these conversations, to share this. And, if you would like to know more, you can click in the description below. There's a link there to some prayers that I've chosen especially for you, for our Mom Life friends. You can click the link, you can pray them with us, and you can know that, as Alyssa's been saying, you are seen. Your labor is not in vain. Hang in there, Mama, because we love you, and we thank you so much for being with us. We'll see you next time.